Hey guys, welcome into the hole for a very special episode.
Yes, welcome to be here, guys. We just wrapped up a fantastic episode with our good friend, author, and archivist of the strange, Steve Stockton.
Yes.
He was kind enough to jump back in the hole with us. We discussed some pretty spicy bits of strange.
Yeah, we talked about dangers of the Appalachian Trail, phantom motorcyclists,
Oh yeah.
cursed objects, haunted mirrors. It was a wild ride.
And in the second half, we dabble a bit in containment theory
Ooh, yeah.
and the controversial activity known as legend tripping.
Controversial.
Controversial because, well, you'll see why. We'll take you to the allegedly cursed town of Dudleytown.
Oh, yes.
And much more, guys.
Without further ado, let's get into the episode. John is not with us for this one, but he is in the expansion. So if you're not a member and you miss his sweet, sultry voice, join us there.
That's right.
Belieful.com.
Enjoy the show.
All right, let's hit it.
Conspiracy.
Dogman, Sasquatch, Homunculus, Alien Races,
Anunnaki.
Corey Feldman,
Ghost Ass. That's cool.
Poltergeist, Spirit Summoning, Magicians Are Demons,
Anunnaki. Close the door, Close the door!
What is the Moon, Cover-Ups, MK Ultra, Shadow People, Disagreements,
Quiet, I'm trying to say words with my mouth.
Vampire. Well, hello. Welcome to Belief Hole. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Steve Stockton.
That's right.
Darn tootin'.
Steve Stockton is back, and we
Yes.
are super excited to have you here today, Steve. It's been a long time. It's been too long.
Yeah, I didn't go away. I've been hanging out in your basement.
I wonder why that closet door is always open over there. It's great to have you on, man. We've been dying to do another episode kind of on the Appalachian region and anomalous Appalachia. And we've been putting it off because we wanted to do it when we could have you back and revisit the region. So we're super excited to pick your brain.
I feel honored. And the timing was perfect. Now, on my Tales Untold channel, which is my not so big channel, it's about 122,000. I just been doing some Appalachian stuff over there. I just did 50 terrifying legends from the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
And my most popular video over there, it's had, I think, about 2.5 million views, is Dangers of the Appalachian Trail. So
Oh, good, because I had a question regarding that later. So you should have some information for me.
I hope so.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you back. For those of you who don't know somehow, Steve is a veteran outdoorsman, paranormal researcher. He is a former professional photographer. Somehow I did not catch that last time I was perusing your book, but that's interesting. He's got, as you heard, Tales Untold. We'll have links for these channels. Also, Missing Persons Mysteries, 13 Past Midnight.
Prolific.
Yes, very prolific. And we've been really, really excited to get him back on. And it's after a couple years, almost a couple years at least. We finally have him back in the hole with us. So welcome to Steve.
Yes, welcome.
Glad to be here. And I often tell people the previous one, that's my most favorite interview that I've ever done.
Oh, it's
To
awesome.
which last time you responded, "Take that, George Norrie."
I
And
did.
that's what,
No
I've
offense,
been
George.
on with George a couple of times since then, but you guys are still my favorite.
Oh, thanks.
that means
That's
a
awesome.
lot.
It means a lot.
It really does.
All right. Well,
What I want to ask, in case people are concerned that you might be scaring children in your own home with your spooky stories in the background, you have a 10-month-old baby boy.
oh, yes.
So you might hear some cries.
Yeah, now you can probably hear him. It's hot here in Massachusetts. We've been having a heat wave. And I've got the office door open and he's downstairs, but you might still be able to hear him cry. I was on doing something one night, a live show, and it was telling spooky stories, and somebody's like, "I hear a baby cry." It's like, baby, what baby? Yeah, Holden is 10 months old on the 5th, and he's a stink bug too. We love him. And
Yeah, congratulations, guys.
Yeah,
That's
congratulations.
Nicole's a wonderful mother. It's her first marriage, first baby, and it's an amazing journey for all of us, and Holden included.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, today, Steve, if you don't mind, definitely want this to be sort of an open-ended conversation, but in regards to, specifically the Appalachian Trail. So we have a good friend of ours who's going to get on the Appalachian Trail for the first time with some friends. And I forget, where's he getting on? Do you remember, Jared? Brad? Our good friend Brad?
No, I don't.
He's getting on there at some point on the trail, but he's going for 4 days. Didn't invite us, but he's getting on there.
I think we just slow him down.
Can you enlighten us on some of the dangers of the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my most popular video over on Tales Untold. It used to be Among the Missing, but that kind of pigeonholed it. And when I went back and took over Missing Person Mysteries, that became my channel. But on there, it talks about, there's I mean, all kinds of things can happen to you in the wilderness. The Appalachian Trail, it's about 2,200 miles. It has one end in Mount Katahdin in Maine, and the other end is on Springer Mountain in Georgia. So northbound or southbound, those are the two terminus points. But there's all kinds of land, if you want to, mountains between here and there, up, down, summit vistas, crawling through stuff, climbing over stuff, bushwhacking. So anything that can happen in the wilderness. I mean, there's from small stuff like bugs and things that can get you, to snakes, to predators like big cats, bears. That's rare, but it can happen. Falls, hypothermia. The whole thing's a danger if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, there are safeguards you can take, carry the right equipment, personal locator beacon in case you get lost. Check in every so often with somebody that knows where you are. Publish an itinerary with your friends at least. So if you do go missing, they at least know where to start looking for you. I mean, otherwise it's a needle in a haystack. And I've had search and rescue and park rangers say that, it could be anywhere. If we don't know, say he's in the Great Smoky Mountains, it could be anywhere. That's a big place. And you're looking for something this small in a place that's this big. But probably the biggest dangers are just being ill-prepared and overconfident. That'll get people a lot of times, get you in trouble. Think, oh, it'll never happen to me, till it does. And then there you are.
That reminds me of a case that I'm pretty sure I've heard maybe first from you talking about, which was, I don't remember her name, but it was someone who was found something like 50 yards from the trail.
Yeah,
or 50,
Geraldine Largay. She had been hiking the Appalachian Trail, and she didn't have good sense of direction, apparently. No shade there.
Right.
But she'd had a friend that was hiking with her. The friend had to go back. Her husband was meeting her every so often at points so she could restock and resupply. But yeah, she just stepped off the trail to use the bathroom.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Got turned around, couldn't find her way back. They found her remains in a tent. That's in my Dangers of the Appalachian Trail video. I discussed that case.
Wow. How long had she been missing?
I can't tell you right off the top of my head. It did take them a while to find her, though.
Yeah. It's just incredible how easy that can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you first get, and we might have talked about this the first time we spoke with you, but how did you first get into the missing phenomena?
The families of the missing are first and foremost in my mind. It was the Dennis Martin case for me. Father's Day, 1969. I grew up in East Tennessee, Knoxville, Elk Ridge area. Dennis was from the same area. He was just a few months older than me. I think I was 5 going on 6. He was 6 going on 7 in Father's Day, 1969. He went hiking in the Smokies, a little weekend getaway with his father, his grandfather, and his older brother. And went missing from Spence Field there in Cates Cove area, which is right along the Appalachian Trail. Of course, being a local event, it was all over the news, all the 3 TV stations that we had in Knoxville at that time, the morning and evening papers, it was all over everything. And I followed that case for a long, long time. Somewhere I've still got a scrapbook full of stuff that I cut out about that. And it just, it was a real loss of innocence, because here's a kid about my age that just disappeared.
And for those of you unfamiliar with the case, I just want to drop in a brief clip from Steve's most recent update about the Dennis Martin case from his channel that provides a little context about the disappearance itself.
The weekend of Father's Day, 1969, was meant to be a joyous occasion for the Martin family. Dennis, along with his father, grandfather, and 9-year-old brother, had embarked on a camping trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a place of breathtaking beauty and untamed wilderness. On the afternoon of June 14, just a few days before his 7th birthday, Dennis and his brother were playing with other children near Spence Field, a highland meadow on the Appalachian Trail. The children, in a moment of playful exuberance, decided to play a prank on the adults. The plan was simple. The boys would split up, hide behind the bushes, and then jump out to surprise their parents. Dennis, the youngest of the group, went one way, while the other boys went another. It was a game of hide and seek that would have a devastatingly permanent conclusion. Dennis Martin was never seen again. The initial moments after Dennis's disappearance were filled with a slowly creeping dread. According to the timeline detailed in the recently released National Park Service case file, his father became concerned within 3 to 5 minutes of the boys parting ways. He began calling out for his son, his voice echoing through the dense foliage.
Dennis! Dennis!
When there was no response, he started a frantic search along the Appalachian Trail, his heart pounding with a growing sense of panic. He returned to the main group, hoping that Dennis had simply circled back, but his hopes were dashed. The search continued, growing more desperate with each passing moment. As dusk began to settle over the mountains, a sense of urgency turned into a full-blown emergency. At approximately 8:30 p.m., Dennis's grandfather made his way to Cades Cove and notified the park rangers that his grandson was missing. The official search for Dennis Martin had begun. And they never found any trace of him whatsoever. And I kept thinking, he'll show up today. Today will be the day that they'll find him. Because I'd read the newspapers, I'd watch the news. It never happened. And I just recorded a video for that, this is 50-something years, so whatever, since 1969 is the anniversary of it. But there is a substantial update.
Oh.
That's one of the ones that people have claimed, that there's something strange there, or there's
right.
Maybe Bigfoot took him, or a feral human living in the Smokies got him. But there was another author, and I can't think of the gentleman's name right off the top of my head, but through FOIA, Freedom of Information Acts, he was able to get the information that some of these other missing people couldn't get. And what he found in these reams of research, according to the FBI and the Park Service, it was just, he probably wandered off somewhere and died of hypothermia, as sad as that is. But filed that case from day one. That was what got me into that. And I've had other people say, oh, you can't talk about that case. That's so-and-so's case.
What?
Nah, I don't think so. I followed it from day one. We lived about an hour from the Smokies, but that was an hour by car. In my little childlike mind, we lived out in the country on a 26-acre farm. And I think, well, what if he wandered down here? It's possible. So I went out on this rural country road that we lived on, rode my Schwinn Stingray up and down the road from the house to the lake and back a mile or two, looking for him, looking in the bushes. If he's out here, he's scared, he's hiding. And I've never stopped looking for him. And then I met his dad later in life. He was an architect at a company that took a field trip to in high school. And I'm walking through and I see a picture on this desk of Dennis Martin. And when we came back through, he was sitting there and I recognized him. He'd done some stuff in the press and things. He kind of shunned the press later in life. And I introduced myself to him. I didn't mention Dennis or anything, but every year around the anniversary date, the local stations there would, especially WATE, Channel 6 there in Knoxville, they would do a little update thing or a memory of Dennis. And he did consent to an interview one time. Saddest thing I've ever seen. He said, I always thought that one day I'd be sitting there in my living room and I'll hear a knock at the door. And I'll go and think, another reporter or something, and open the door. Yes, what is it? And he said there'd be a nice-looking young man standing there, and he said, Dad, it's me. It's Dennis. I've come home. And, oh, man, it tug at your heartstrings. Well, sadly, that never happened. He passed away, I think it's been about 10 years or so ago, on Halloween, my birthday no less, and no closure whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just, that's got to be the worst. At least if they've recovered remains, something like that, you would have a grave you could visit or an urn on the mantle. But to not know, is he still alive somewhere? Did somebody kidnap him? Is he hurt? Is he, just that not knowing, that would gnaw at you even worse, I think. And that's that's one reason I started looking into the missing person cases. And there were other ones in the Smokies that rang out, like the Trini Gibson disappearance. She disappeared from Clingman's Dome area in, I think it was the late 70s. But I knew Trini, didn't know her very well. She worked at Morrison's Cafeteria in West Town Mall. My mom and dad liked to go eat there.
Oh, wow.
So I'd see her around there. We went to rival high schools. I went to Carnes. She went to Bearden. We're crosstown rivals. And I've done that hike up to Clingman's Dome. That's a pretty interesting hike in and of itself. It's kind of hard to get up there, but if you get up to the observation tower, beautiful view, just all out over the Smokies on a clear day. That doesn't happen very often. They call them the Smokies for a reason. But again, what happened to her? I have some theories on that one, but again, they're just theories.
Yeah.
And Thelma, Polly Melton, that went missing from Smokies in, I think that was in sometime in the 80, 81, something like that. The hiking and skiing club that I was a member of actually helped search for her. We volunteered, and another one, no trace of her. So I've been doing this for a long time.
I was going to say, you've been intimately connected with it since
starting in 1969. So.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the trail and the dangers on there, because one of the fears I think a lot of people have, or at least you definitely see videos on this, people have talked about this.
Bears? Irrational fear of bears?
Well, for you it's bears, but I was going to go with the human factor.
Yeah.
The danger of someone on the trail with maybe nefarious intentions.
It does happen. And there have been, people like Israel Keys, people like that basically serial predators that use those trails to hunt. And I think as of when I made that Danger of the Appalachian Trail video, I may be off here, but I think there have been 13 murders on the trail since, I want to say, the 70s or something like that, which is not a lot. I mean, considering I've had people say that, it's safer on the Appalachian Trail than it is to walk in a big city. I mean, I could go over here to Boston and probably get in just as much trouble.
Right.
But you don't go on the Appalachian Trail with that expectation that, there's going to be gangs and killers and thieves. And
right.
But that happens. There's people that rob you. There's people that attack people for whatever reason. There's people that are just loco that ply their trade on the trails. And you think about it, you could travel through, from Georgia to Maine and never really set foot on a highway or in a place unless you got off trail. Now, there's little trail towns and stuff. But, you could hop off the trail, do your nefarious things, then get back on the trail and escape any police dragnet or anything like that if they're stopping cars and checking. So.
Exactly.
Or conduct the nefarious deeds in places where there will be people and they will be a little more vulnerable than they naturally would be. Yeah. Which actually takes me to another story I'd like to...
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
And maybe you're going to go into this, but...
Probably.
The alternative of someone using those surroundings as kind of a one-off or a place to, do their deed. What do you think about the concept? We may have talked about this before, but the concept of there being isolated pockets of population that have been lost or forgotten, maybe when some national park has claimed the land, villagers that may have lived there, settlers may have decided to stay and retreat within the wilderness. You get the idea of like the population of like a lost population of feral people or that kind of idea that may be responsible for some abductions. Do you think that's a possibility?
I think it's possible. And that's, the containment theory that you guys have talked about. That the national parks aren't put there to keep people out or whatever the boundaries, but to keep certain people in. So that's possible. I mean, I believe there are feral people. I've looked into that. But there are wild people. In Smoky Mountain, one of the park rangers up there, Dwight McCarter, he kind of alluded to the wild man theory. He didn't come out and say wild man, but he said there are some people up there that like to live in the woods and stay off the grid.
Yeah.
And and what I like to point out is the Olympic Park bomber. He hid out in Nantahala National Forest, which isn't too far from the Smokies, for years. And this was a guy with only minimal survival experience and stuff. Now, I'm not saying he didn't have help.
Yeah.
Because I think people were supplying him. Eric Rudolph is who I'm trying to think of.
Okay.
And I think I saw him in a Burger King in Mountain City, Tennessee before they got caught. That's a true story. Because I was
What he
the
ordered?
person I was with. I don't know what he was eating, but he had on a hat and glasses, and the guy was with us. Said, "That looks like Eric Rudolph." So we're really watching him, and you could tell it unnerved him, maybe because he's in this little mountain town and people are staring at him. But he got up and left, and then when they did find him, it wasn't too far from there.
Oh, wow.
But if
That's
a guy
crazy.
like that can hide out from the FBI for several years, 5 or 6 years, I think, in Nantahala,
Yeah.
then how easy would it be to hide in the Smokies or any national park or even a state park
Exactly.
for that matter? I mean, wilderness is wilderness. And if you know what you're doing, if you know how to hunt and trap, know what you can eat out there, have a water source, you can live indefinitely.
Yeah.
You got those skills.
And it's easy to be unprepared. I mean, Jeremy and I, we've spent, we're not strangers to the forest. We spent time in the woods. We've been camping many times. But even when you think you are pretty prepared for certain things, we had a experience the other day where we decided, let's do some river walking because it's a beautiful day. It was like 92 degrees. And we'll get in here under this bridge that's like a quarter mile from our house. We'll shimmy down the side of the hill here. Didn't really think about
Returning?
didn't really plan about with the terrain. So we end up going down this steep
It's
embankment.
easy to go down, not necessarily coming back
We
up.
get in the water, realize the river's too high and it's too the direction we needed to go to get out at another spot was downstream. So every time we walked, the mud would kick up and you couldn't see the rocks. So we're we should just probably get back out here. We probably look like idiots, but we try to get out and realized where we came in, it was all clay. So I'm trying to shimmy up the side of this thing. I keep falling. And Jeremy has to go get car straps from my trunk.
I made it out. I got car straps from the trunk and
Because I pushed him up. Yeah. So I'm if we're just a quarter mile from our house.
We just rescued each other from the towpath from the Ohio Erie Canal.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, stuff like that can happen. I've had that happen to me hiking. Suddenly you're in a bog and it's trying to suck the shoes off your feet or the boots off your feet. And the quicksand. I grew up in the 70s. And you saw that on a lot of shows, Daniel Boone, Gunsmoke, all these things. There'd always somebody getting quicksand. That was the end of them. They sink down out of sight. And I've never been in actual quicksand that I know of, but it was, always in the back of my head. You're kind of looking around to make sure. But there's things like that can happen, especially if you're not expecting it. You're not watching where you're walking. You're going around, looking up. But that's another thing. A lot of people look at the trail. Not that many people look up. I tested that out in the Smokies. I climbed a tree beside the trail one time, and I'm right there just above people, maybe 20, 25 feet up. And there's probably 40 or 50 people hiked right past me, never saw me up there.
Wow.
If I wanted to
Eerie.
be a predator, there you go. Or if I was an animal, or if I was a big cat or something, I could have jumped down, and that's what they like to do. They sit in a tree, they jump down, they get you by the neck, and they drag you off. But
terrifying.
Be aware of your surroundings. I mean, literally, you have to have your head on a swivel. You have to look where you're stepping, especially when you're stepping over something. If you're going under a big tree or something, they don't call them widowmakers for nothing. But look up. There's snakes. There's cats. There might be a guy like me up in a tree. Just be aware of your surroundings.
Yes.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I have intrusive thoughts. We have an area here called Rogues Hollow that's kind of a notoriously haunted place with its own crybaby bridge, which every good little town has.
Yeah.
But every time I drive down there in this hollow, it's trees always leaning in towards the road. And my intrusive thoughts I'm always just waiting for a tree to fall. I don't know why I have this paranoia, and I go through there regularly, but every time I go through, I'm always just imagining a tree crushing me.
It'll save your life one day.
Yeah, maybe. It could be coming.
Yeah, and if you were really unlucky, it would just trap you, and you'd have to gnaw your arm off or cut your leg off with a pocket knife or something to get out of there. And there's been cases like that. There was some guy that I reported on where I think he got his arm caught and had to cut himself loose with a Bowie knife or something. It's
Was that there was a movie based on that, right? Was that the same story?
There was one out west. I think it was, let's say James Franco. I don't know if that's right, but he was a hiker, and then I think a boulder fell in his arm or something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, can't imagine.
It may just be a fictional thing, but I think I've covered one where that actually happened, where a guy was pinned and had to cut himself out and cauterize the stump, and just all kinds of things. And
incredible.
The will to survive can make a big difference sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, for sure. I just hope that I have that will. I don't know that I do. It just depends on the situation.
I'd
But
be
I
like,
hope-
I've had a good life. I don't need to do any cutting today.
hopefully I won't have to make that decision. But speaking of the roads,
Yeah. I found out something, Steve, that I had not known because I had missed this in your book. But I was thinking about the terrain and that kind of alluring landscape of the Appalachians and the hills and the hollers. And coming across your story, I didn't know that you used to ride a motorcycle, which sounds like the coolest way.
Oh, yeah. I rode a Harley for years.
Yes, there was a line that you used, out chasing the moon.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is?
Now that wasn't on the Harley, but that was something I used to just do in my, I had a 71 Impala at that time.
yes, that's right.
But if I didn't have anything to do and I was off from work and my friends were busy or studying or whatever, I would chase the moon. I'd just go for a drive. I used to try to pick a road that I'd never been on before. And if I got to a fork in the road or, a different, where I could choose a direction,
Yeah.
I would go whichever direction the moon was or the closest to it. And I've been beautifully lost that way many times, but I discovered a lot of neat things too.
That's a good way to put it. Beautifully lost. I love that.
Yeah. My mom, she used to do this thing with her friend called penny drop drives, where they would drop a penny on the ground whenever they came to a dead end.
Heads or tails.
Exactly. You go one direction. Chris and I do that sometimes and
Yeah.
just turn off the phone, or I usually don't have mine on me anyway because I don't know where it is. But
Yeah, same concept. You just, heads or tails, heads this way, tails that way.
Yeah.
Where's the moon? The moon's over here. We'll go that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, but I was just imagining that kind of, and I was imagining you on your bike, and I was thinking, what an incredible way to ride, to experience the Appalachians.
I probably did some of that on my Harley as well, but in that particular, I think that's the Phantom motorcyclist story.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the one on the bike, not me. Yeah, that was one of those nights. I was just out riding and going through some way that I wasn't exactly sure where I was. And this was back in the days when didn't have GPS, didn't have a cell phone or anything like that. This was early 80s, maybe even late 70s. And, paper maps in the glove box in the car. And if you got too lost, you'd have to dig out a map and try to find something where you're at and something that you recognize. But, I was out on this country road, little 2-lane road, chasing the moon. And at one point I looked behind me, and there's a guy on a motorcycle with no lights on, no headlight on. I thought, I'd been a rider, and I had a motorcycle at that point. And I thought, well, it's somebody that's lost his light. I've had that happen before. I lost the ground one time on my Harley, and the headlight looked like a candle. But, you don't want somebody to run over you, so that was what I did. I kind of rode behind somebody or get somebody to let me ride in front of them. I'm going over here. Can you ride along and make sure nobody flattens me out? So I thought, it's a guy like that. And he'd been behind me for a while, and I knew there was a stop sign coming up that finally turned on to a way that I knew. And I thought, well, when I get up to the stop sign, I'll get out and I'll go back there and tell him, well, let me know where you're going and I'll drive there and you can follow me or I'll follow you and make sure you don't get, well, pull up this stop sign. I get out, go back. No motorcycle. No guy there. And I thought, well, I know he didn't pass me. He must have turned off somewhere or got to where he was going or something. Okay, so I get back in my car, take off. Still chasing the moon. And a few miles later, he's back again, right up on my bumper. This went on for a little while, and he'd always be back there. And then finally went by a place there. And again, I thought, something's going to happen to this guy. But then he just disappeared. And it was near an area of Beaver Creek, which is a notoriously haunted creek. It runs from the mouth of it's there in Tennessee. It runs way up into Virginia. But there's all kinds of weird stuff on that creek. And I'd heard another story similar to that, except it wasn't a guy on a motorcycle, but a guy on a horse that would follow you or get on the horse behind you if you were riding a horse. And I think that's what it was. It was the spirit of this guy that probably met his end on that road at some point, and he was still trying to get home, and he just was following me chasing the moon.
Man,
I go into a lot more detail
yeah.
in My Strange World, but that's the gist of it. I do a much better writing of it than I do telling it off the top of my head.
Yeah, definitely pick it up. It's a great account, and it made me think about some things.
I've got a video about it on 13 Past Midnight.
Oh, cool. Well, we'll have that linked.
We'll link it right down. Click on the video description if you're watching on YouTube, or the show notes if you are listening on audio. But Chris, before you jump in, I wanted to mention, so I really liked how you wrote that out in the book, Steve. And you had an interesting follow-up that you mentioned, that the horseback rider and the phantom or spirit that would jump on your horse if you were passing by. Presumably, you said, according to legend, the ghost of a Revolutionary War soldier who had drowned in the pond after being shot by a Haitian soldier.
Yeah.
And you continue to feel the presence behind you on the horse until a certain point.
When you crossed running water, I think. And
Yes.
that's what had happened with the motorcyclist. I crossed Beaver Creek, and when I got on the other side of the creek, I didn't see him anymore.
That's so fascinating.
So who knows? But that's one of the legends that my granny used to say, that the ghost couldn't cross running water. She said, if you ever get something after you, and she's the one that used to say, there's a haint never holler. She was from the Cates Cove area of the Smokies. And she said, if you get a booger or something after you, she said, get across the nearest stream, stuff that won't follow you. And where we lived there in East Tennessee, 26.5-acre farm, there was a place we called the Bottoms. It was over on the other side. We had 7 natural springs. 6 of them flowed out of hillsides. One of them was an artesian spring, but then flowed into a bigger creek, which went down into the river, later the lake, after TVA dammed up the river. That was our garden spot. We had about 5 acres down there where my parents garden, raised vegetables and stuff. Woods all around there. I'd be down there playing sometime, and before you know it, it'd be dark. And I would run. I would run across. My dad built a little wooden bridge there, and I would run across that bridge because it felt like something was going to come out of the woods and get me.
Yeah. I've had that feeling.
And there was a ditch near there that had been a road during the Revolutionary War. That was where my story about the thing in the ditch that turned out to be possibly a naiad or dryad or whatever. Elemental. That was where that happened at. And the spirit of the water, what better place than somewhere where there's 7 natural springs? It was just...
Exactly.
And we used to find a lot of Civil War relics and things there. There had been battles there. It was down in a little hollow, and you could, if you were up on top where that road was, you could see down into there, and there's fresh water there. So people probably stopped to get water or water their horses or mules or whatever. Met their end right there. It was haunted. It felt haunted.
Yeah.
I love the concept of, well, we did an episode years back called Barricading the Boogeyman, Spiritual Architecture. And that's one of my favorite things to ponder on. Just what are the physics behind spiritual movement, disincarnate spirits or elementals or whatever's out there? What rules do they have to follow in relationship to elements within the earth, within, frequencies,
architecture,
like all these things? I think it's such a fascinating thing. And
it is. And I think it's different for different things too, because if a ghost can't cross running water, then how do you explain a crybaby bridge or a lady in white that walks a bridge? Those are down south, very prevalent. Yeah. And there's some up here in New England too. So sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the individual spirit, I think, as to what what rules they have to play by. But you don't know maybe what you're dealing with.
Exactly. And how much of that is dependent upon
if it's a conscious
or the culture that person lived in before they died. Because it's interesting to see when you have cross-cultural corroboration of spiritual rules insofar as crossing water. You have that all around the globe with disconnected cultures that discuss these things. And I always find those to be the most interesting, because it's like, how do they come? Is this some sort of deep archetypal thing in the human mind, or is it more fun to imagine this is something that is real?
Yeah. We also have, there's a couple options too. Of course, the stone tape, the echo replaying, where it's not necessarily a conscious thing following any kind of rule, but maybe it is the absorbing of spectral energy, spirit that is just replayed.
Right.
But then also, Chris, you brought up the idea of different cultures, and we did an episode a while back on Ji Yun, who was he was kind of like the Fox Mulder of like 1500s China, if that's the right century. But fascinating guy, archivist of strange personal encounters, much like yourself, just in China hundreds of years ago. And he had some incredible accounts. But one that reminds me of, Chris, is there was some story where basically the spirits that were trying to get from one place to another, they would have these visitations of these spirits at this kind of toll road, and these spirits would stop. And they felt like it seemed like they had to stop because the belief in the culture was you know, at the time it was very much like you had to be counted. You had to move forward and pass through, but you had to stop and like mark your name or whatever. So this played a role in how the spirits were seen in the afterlife, if that makes sense. Like they still had to follow protocol. And so that culture, maybe because it was so ingrained in that culture at that time, they reenacted it after death, which is kind of an interesting approach.
Yeah, all kinds of interesting thoughts when you consider the architecture and the movement and the physics. But definitely one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think it's cultural based and their belief system. What you believe, what they believe, and it kind of meets in the middle somewhere. And that's how the rules are formed and why they're different from areas and different spirits.
It's really interesting. I'd love to one day do a whole episode on spirit travel. Because in that Ji Yun book, we talked about some of the rules in traveling down highways. And I like the idea of migration, like almost like in some sort of Tolkien sort of way.
Like a pilgrimage kind of thing?
Yeah, like in some other plane, you're moving on, but maybe you're crossing boundaries on our physical world, just like a sliver over of a reality. I just kind of think that's a romantic sort of idea in some way. But that would be fun to investigate.
Absolutely.
I was going back through My Haunted World. Is that the title?
You're close.
My Strange World.
My Strange World. Yes, that's right.
And I have signed copies available in my Etsy shop. You can put a link up for that, too.
Awesome. All the links below.
We covered some of those awesome stories last time you were on, but we didn't get to all of them. And I was just going back and looking for some. I don't want to direct the interview altogether, but there are some I do want to touch on.
Sure.
I also have, I didn't know I had the physical copy. I must have bought it previously.
Yeah, I was looking for that book, Chris. Where did you keep it?
It was in my bookshelf.
I was a fan of you. Oh, yeah, that's another good one.
It's great.
I've got, I think, 21 or 22 books out now. I'm working on them all the time.
That's amazing.
I just got a contract for a 6-volume set about Strange New England, one book for each of the 6 New England states. Strange
That's
Massachusetts is going to be the first one. So we were talking about My Strange World, which is autobiographical. This is just a few of my personal paranormal experiences going back to childhood.
So you said you have just a few of your stories represented in My Strange World. Does that mean, are you going to potentially do another book at some point of more of your personal experiences?
Yeah, it's in the works. Like I said, if I can never slow down, I've got probably a dozen books in progress. And that's the way I write, just a scatterground approach. That way I never experience any type of
writer's block?
Writer's block. I've always got another project I can jump into. So I keep a dozen things going on all the time.
Smart.
Let me ask you something about that process, Steve, because before we get into the stories, while you're writing multiple books at a time, do you sometimes, as you're discussing some story or concept in one book, does it jog something in another book? Like, you're like, oh, you know what, this would really relate to some concept or story I'm doing in this book.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm 61 years old. I'll be 62 on Halloween. So I got a lot of memories in the soul noggin rattling around. And that'll happen sometimes. I'll be telling some other story and I'll say, oh, yeah, totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then I'll jump over here and maybe make myself a note or something. Remember this story. And if it doesn't fit within the scope of that book or one of the other ones I've got, then that goes into my personal slush pile for another book down the road. I've got all kinds of them planned and in progress.
That's really cool. It reminds me of the way that we've been doing episodes the last season or two.
Yeah.
We created something called the incubator because we'll start so many episodes like for research and content gathering, corroborative accounts. And then we'll be like, well, we found something else we want to do, so let's move on. And then we'll just come back. And so we have like, I think 30 episodes that haven't been done.
Like, yeah, here's a fascinating note of truth that connects to this outline we were working on last week. So we'll just put that in there. And yes, you kind of build these spider webs of story and research.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens with videos too. When I'm making videos for my channel, when I'm doing research, I'll come across something and I'll say, hey, I'm going to keep that over here. I'll use the piece of it that I need, but then I can make a whole video out of it. Like Seth Breedlove's Small Town Monsters got a hold of me a couple of weeks ago, and I've been in some of their documentaries. I was in American Werewolf 2, The Skinwalkers. I've got a copy here somewhere. I don't see it.
Oh, yeah.
They called and wanted me to talk about Bigfoot and missing people. And that's, there's a whole side path of that.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to the native legends and stories, indigenous people, and then the Albert Ostman abduction
Oh, yeah.
in the 20s, which he didn't talk about to the 50s and so on. And while just getting some notes together, basically, for that talk, then that turned into a whole 6,000 word script that I'm going to be recording for. I'll probably put that one on missing persons and mysteries. I try not to do too much conjecture over there.
Yeah.
And do the spookier stuff either on Tales Untold or 13 Past Midnight. A lot of that, the families of the missing are first and foremost in my mind.
Right.
And I don't want, because that happens. The families, excuse me, do watch these videos sometimes, and they'll contact me, about thank you for keeping my loved one's name and face out there. And I don't want to be, talking about somebody that disappeared and then say, oh, but I think Bigfoot took him.
Exactly.
Right. I would put myself in the position, if that were my loved one, I wouldn't want to think that Bigfoot took him, even though that could be a possibility in some of these cases. There are certain cases that do seem to have a supernatural element, where I think that was one of the questions you'd sent me that you were talking about. But
right.
The conjecture and that sort of thing, Tales Untold right now, but there are missing person cases that absolutely defy any explanation or rationale.
Yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. This week's expansion episode,
Do tell.
is Freaks in Las Vegas.
That's right.
We're going to be diving into some really bizarre encounters, alien imposters at casinos, haunted casinos, the buffets at casinos.
All kinds of casinos. Lots of strange in the desert.
Creepy baby imposter spirits in the desert luring you in.
What?
All kinds of crazy stuff.
Baby postures?
Baby posters.
Baby postures. Okay. I'm interested.
And of course, crazy Nevada highway abductions. So you're not going to want to miss it.
It's got a little bit of everything.
Here's a quick clip from this week's expansion.
In 1990, David Patterson was traveling from New Mexico to his home in California when he decided to stop off in Las Vegas for a night of gambling. He went to the Tropicana Casino and played blackjack long into the night. It was the last place he expected to see an extraterrestrial. Writes the witness, I went to the restroom around 4 a.m., and on my way back to the tables, I stopped and watched a peculiar individual walking up the stairs. This person had a hat and sunglasses on, yet something wasn't right with the way he was walking or climbing the stairs. It looked like he was stuck in the mud. His knees sort of came out to the side as he tried raising his feet to take the next step. I noticed also that there were about 3 more that looked just like him at the top of the stairs, yet some taller. They were all skinny, tall, and I recall noticing their whitish-like hair that seemed to shimmer as if light was bouncing off it.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip from the expansion. And if you're not a member yet, go to believehole.com and click on that big red Join the Expansion button, where you get double the episodes, double the fun, fully produced,
And ad-free.
and ad-free. And ad-free main episodes as well.
That's right.
Check the video description or episode notes for a direct link. Chris, what was you had brought up something before we had Steve on. It was about a mirror.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that. Before we
Okay.
get to that, I wanted to ask Steve, for the listeners that haven't seen the conversation we had with you before, it's season 5, Steve has I would say a more readily available view of maybe some paranormal phenomena because of the way you were born. Is that right, Steve?
Well, that's what my grandmother believed. On my mother's side, my granny, she was a self-proclaimed gypsy witch. I don't know where she got the gypsy part because she was born in the Cades Cove area of the Smokies. But when I was born, I had the amniotic sac still stretched over my head. They call that being born in caul, or down south, it was called having a veil over your face.
That's right.
And in her superstitious mind, because I was born that way, it meant that I had a second sight, or that I was more in contact with things. And I think she was right to a point. I mean, I don't claim to have any powers or anything, but
Right.
she had a lot of grandkids. She had my mom and 9 boys. And so there was a whole slew of grandkids.
Yeah.
Well, out of all those, I was the only one born with that caul over my face. So like I said, in her superstitious mind, that singled me out, and that made me the favorite grandchild because she would tell me all these legends and stories and stuff.
Yeah.
And whisk me away to her quilting room where nobody else was allowed. And
That's cool. That's
scared
sweet.
the daylights out of me is what she did. I was like 7, 8 years old. She's telling me all this stuff.
I like that because I reread that last night, actually, and I love that part in your book where you talk about your relationship with her and how when you were at her funeral, you sort of had that epiphany of, if I don't record these stories, it's kind of how you started recording stories. You were worried that her stories would get lost to time. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah. Just I had that epiphany at her funeral. She was always in motion, always going. Of course, there in the stillness of death, she was just a little withered husk of a woman. She only weighed 80-something pounds her whole life, adult life. But and I just thought, all those stories, all those superstitions, ghost stories, tall tales, whatever they were, none of the other kids or even her kids were that interested in them. None of the grandkids at all were.
It's a shame.
And I thought, it dies right there with her if I let it. And that was what gave me the impetus to start writing. That's how Strange Things in the Woods, my first book, came about.
Oh, wow. Really?
Was repeating not only stories that I'd heard from her, but from family, friends of family, things like that.
That's beautiful.
So I assumed that mantle on myself, and it just served me well. And there's a book about Granny in the works, but that one's taken a while. There's a lot, and there's nobody left really. Out of those 10 children, only one of them's still alive, and he's almost 90, and he didn't know a lot of that stuff anyway. So just said, I'm in my early 60s. I'll be 62 Halloween, and I just, I'll remember stuff. I'll be thinking about something she told me or showed me, and she would make me repeat stuff back to her, especially superstitions and things like that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so she kind of had that in her mind.
And if I could do it to suit her, she'd give me a reward, a Hershey bar or a nice crisp $1 bill. And this was, the early 70s or late 60s. $1 bill was a lot. I'd get a stack of comic books and an icy, so I'd do my best to parrot it back to her.
She must have had some sort of feeling then that you might go on to record these if she wanted you to recite what she was saying.
I think she never mentioned that to me, but I think she knew because she had a way of knowing things that she couldn't have known.
Yeah.
I talked about that. There was a house we used to have to drive by on the way to her house where years and years before, there's a little Victorian farmhouse up on a hill. A kid chased a ball out into the road there and ran over and met his demise. And that was told to me as a cautionary tale. That's why you don't chase a ball into the street. Well, we were driving by there one time on the way to her house. I was laying in the back seat. We had a Chevy too at the time, so it was 60s, sometime late 60s, probably 67, 68. I'm reading a comic book, just laying in the back seat, no seatbelts back then, and I felt this little prickle on the back of my neck. I looked up, sure enough, we're driving by that house where that kid had perished in the road. I just, laid back down, went back to my comic book. Well, half an hour or so later, we get to her house. We're carrying stuff in. My mom and dad were bringing stuff in. They'd brought her some stuff. And she took me off into the quilting room to tell me this, that, or the other. And she was asking me about feelings. And she said, you feel? And I said, well, yeah, I've got feelings you can hurt, or if you pinch me, I can feel it. Is that what you mean, Granny? And she said, no. She said, I mean you feel things. Like that spot on the highway on the way here tonight. And I was just like, holy cow, she can read my mind. I didn't say a word about that to my parents, nobody, and not even, especially to her. But she knew before I ever got there that I'd felt something a little woo-woo with that spot. And she was known for that ability when she told fortunes and stuff. There was a lady that I met much later in her life, of course. But when she was a teenager, she had walked with some other teenagers several miles to my grandmother's house to get their fortunes told. And this lady, Anna, is what I call her when I tell the story, she was talking to the other girls. They were in high school. And she said, well, I'll go with you. We'll do it just for a goof, just for fun. But, you know, that old lady's cuckoo. I don't think she knows what she's talking about, how she's going to tell our fortunes and stuff. But we'll do it for fun. And they walked the 2 or 3 miles. Whatever they got there, they knocked on the door. Everybody called her in the community, called her Mama Bessie. She came to the door and they... Yes? Said, Mama Bessie, we're here to get our fortunes told. And she said, okay. She said, I'll tell your fortune, and I'll tell your fortune. But she pointed right at Anna and said, but I won't tell your fortune because you mocked me. You don't believe in me. And Anna said, you could have knocked me over with a feather. She said, we had that conversation 2 or 3 miles away from where she lived. Nobody else around. There's no way she could have known that, but yet she did. So there you go.
Wow. Just picked up on that. That's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool. That reminds me of, I don't know if you will be able to recall this story, but this is kind of one I read recently of yours. And I guess you didn't see the boy, but you had that feeling, but it reminded me of, you have 2 accounts in your book that I read involving graveyards. And the second one is the one I'm thinking of. I think you were on a date. Does this ring a bell?
That's probably the Methodist cemetery.
Yes,
And,
that's right.
yeah, that time I didn't see him, but my date was looking over my shoulder and she saw him. And she said, there's some little kid in here watching us. And I told her the legend and she was ready to go. That ended that date. And, but yeah, that cemetery was very active. And again, the cemetery was up here. Here's the road right down here, Beaver Creek that I've talked about. That whole area along that creek, or that part of it in East Tennessee anyway. All kinds of stuff went on. But,
connective thread there, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that little boy had been seen there for decades. And I never saw him, but I could feel his presence when I was in there.
Yeah. It was interesting that she saw him and she hadn't heard the story until you told her about the folklore.
Yeah, and then she didn't want to hear no more.
It's the end of that.
Yeah.
No more cemetery dates. Steve, I found fascinating the legend and the curse, and I think you kind of get into its, the skeptical side of this legend as well, but the curse of Dudleytown.
Yeah, that's one of those. It can go either way. No, that's up here in New England. It's in, I think it's Connecticut.
Yeah.
But depending on who you talk to, there's all kinds of weird things, all kinds of stuff happened. The Warrens actively investigated it. They called it the most haunted place in New England or Connecticut.
I didn't know that. And it's like an abandoned, for those that don't know.
The whole town was abandoned. Yeah, it fell on hard times, and there was supposedly a curse of Dudleytown. But then there are people that still live there, apparently 1 or 2, that are kinfolk of the people that founded the place. They said, no, it's just a bunch of hooey, but who knows? But yeah, they have all kinds of signs up and stuff warn you out of there. They will arrest you if you go trespassing in there.
Yeah.
You're not welcome in Dudleytown. But it's supposedly a town that was so cursed, everybody abandoned it. Misfortune, fell, crops, deaths, all kinds of stuff. And people picked up and left.
Yeah.
There's still things there, but I wouldn't go.
Yeah. Actually, I was fascinated by your telling of it. And you mentioned that kind of like, the hesitancy, like maybe don't do this, don't go legend tripping here. And so that got me, of course, interested. And that seems to be the creepiest part of Dudleytown in my mind. Like I was digging in, doing some research on the town, and it is like almost, I'm not going to say vicious, but it is like they seem to really put their foot down, like you're not allowed to be here. They actively patrol, and it's positioned between, I think, 2 state parks or something like that.
Yeah.
And also creepy is just the name of the forest in which Dudleytown exists or did exist, which is Dark Entry Forest.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That alone, just okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just asking for it at that point.
If you want like a great, totally crazy corner conjecture episode from the Belief Hole, I was considering looking into this, but of course saying, we're not recommending you go here. We're not saying that these people are involved in anything, but it is very containment theory primed because you have, anytime you Google Dudleytown, and I won't give the name out here, but there's one individual who's listed, and then him and his wife, according to a police report, are the only people that I've seen that were listed as owners of Dark Entry Forest. And they run the Dark Entry Forest Association, which is basically safeguarded or kept in or out, whatever's there since like the 1920s or 30s. No one's been allowed in.
The Dark Entry Forest Association sounds like some clandestine
Yeah,
cause.
it's like the Black Forest in Germany or something.
Exactly.
The Brothers Grimm.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into anything with devil or Diablo in the name.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Lauren Coleman first wrote about that in back in the 70s in some of his books, The Name Game. But anything with devil, Diablo, ghost, witch in the name, stay out of there, or just you're looking for trouble.
That actually reminds me of a little weird synchronicity with the Dark Entry Forest as well, where Dudleytown existed, that you cannot go. Is the one police report I read took place off of Bald Mountain Road. And that just reminds me of Bald Mountain, A Night on Bald Mountain, which of course recounts,
the Disney thing.
The witches, like the original composer who wrote it as like describing the summoning of Satan, and the witches' commune. It's just so weird, and just like the lack of transparency.
And that's Dark Entry, Dudleytown,
right.
Nobody being allowed in around there. It smacks of like one of those 70s Hammer horror films,
I love
Village
those.
of the Damned or something.
What a great series.
Great anthology series, too. Hammer's House of Horror?
Yeah.
I'm watching that a lot lately.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, but that's what it reminds me of, that there's some kind of a cult or cult activity there
Right.
that they don't want you to know about.
Exactly.
So what better way? Now, I'm not pointing any fingers. It's
Right.
That's
This is
just
all
a
conjecture. We definitely do not
little bit
recommend.
of fun conjecture, but
Yeah.
it's a strange place from what I've read about.
Yeah. They're very, their position essentially is like, this is very important ecology. We want it protected, which I understand, and even the story of Dudleytown, there's the idea that maybe it was over logged and there was less, because that was part of like what built Dudleytown, according to legend, was the, the logging industry and that kind of stuff. Like you wrote about the ironworks and foundry there. And as the wood wore thin, and then there were competing places with larger amounts of timber. So you could argue they wanted to protect the land that was there, but it is weird, like near 300 acres that is actively guarded. It just feels, but yeah, again, we do not recommend you going there.
Checking it out.
You'll probably be arrested.
Yeah, don't go there. And I say that sometimes in my books. It's a travel guide for the adventurous, but you're on your own if you go to some of these places.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It's funny because like I do a website for our local historical society where we are in Clinton, Ohio, but reading the Historical Society of Cornwall, which is the area right adjacent or surrounding Dudleytown, it's just like definitely like a poo-pooing in a kind of aggressive way. Like I just wanted to read this quote because I thought this was funny. It just makes you want to challenge the narrative. Because of course, again, they do not want people like coming in. Apparently it's been a real problem, thrill seekers of the paranormal.
And that happens. But there's a place in here not too far from where we used to live called Spider Gate Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually Quaker Friends Cemetery. You can look that up. I think it's either in Leicester or Worcester, Massachusetts. There's all kinds of tales there of a hanging tree and a witch place and all this. I mean, it's a Quaker cemetery. But then there's people made videos. They go there at night. They see all this stuff. All this happens. And they kind of frown upon people visiting, especially after dark. But it's a cemetery. You can go there, but look up Spider Gate Cemetery in Massachusetts.
Right here, yeah.
It's creepy.
Spidergate Cemetery.
Yeah, Spidergate Cemetery, a nickname granted to the small, secluded Quaker cemetery tucked into the woodland landscape of the Kettlebrook Reservoir area. Yeah, Spidergate Cemetery. That's definitely a more spooky name.
Spidergate is an awesome
Quaker
name for a
cemetery.
cemetery.
Well, they have those gates there. It's supposed to be a stylized sunshine, but it looks like a spider web on there. It is a creepy place. Yeah.
A similar thing I mentioned earlier, but our local Rogues Hollow here, every Halloween, they usually have patrol cars going down because kids go down there. We went down when we were kids, but Halloween, you go down there at night, wait for the babies cry, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There was a Devil's Triangle down there too, where the devil would hide out in the tree.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things down in Rogues. And it's just a tiny little area. It's probably maybe 1 square mile, but it's this little hollow that holds so much folklore because it was a really dangerous place. It was back when the canal was still operational, and this was like a booming silver mine, coal mine, and then silver mine, but back tucked way in the woods, not too far from here. But because of that, you had a lot of people get off the canal looking for work, a lot of rowdy people, and you'd have a lot of illicit activities taking place, murders, bodies disappearing. So it was, I think arguably for a good reason, had a reputation for haunted, and hence why it was called Rogues Hollow.
And you get, kids going down and, party tripping, going down for Halloween, trying to find.
Yeah, so they always got patrol on Halloween night. Make sure that kids aren't coming down there. And
so maybe Dudleytown gets it worse. I think around Blair Witch Project, according to them, in the 90s, they decided to stop allowing hikers in from one source that I read. But it was just, it's just I finally found this quote. I wanted to read this. I thought this was just kind of interesting and
it better be
agitating for those of us that are just interested in the paranormal. But they said, quote, every fall, and again, this is them warning, do not go, which I would agree with that sentiment probably. Every fall, as we get closer to Halloween, the Cornwall Historical Society receives an increased number of requests to visit Dudleytown. The answer is always no. Here's why. First of all, the society does not have the right to grant permission. The area of Cornwall, popularly known as Dudleytown, is private property. It does not belong to the town, and it certainly does not belong to the Historical Society. Secondly, the people who live in Dudleytown, which I can only find a reference of like a couple people in 300 acres, are completely fed up with the thrill-seeking, or would-be ghost hunters. Imagine if someone wrote that your home was haunted, even though it wasn't, and you suddenly had total strangers wandering around your yard, peering through your windows, setting fires and leaving litter. I can understand that.
A little annoying.
Invading your privacy on a regular basis. You wouldn't like it very much, and neither does anyone in Cornwall. Be forewarned. This is a historical society who is not associated at all with the town, Dudleytown. Be forewarned that if you should unfortunately decide that your curiosity is more important than the privacy and property of Cornwall residents, you will be arrested for trespassing. So that's pretty much their warning. And they go on to basically say that
the local law is in on it too, whatever's going on there.
Yeah, well, apparently, so they don't have a local police force. Apparently, because it rests between these state parks, it's all state law enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, state law enforcement and as well as like whatever park authorities.
Still, it's kind of odd circumstances there, but I get it.
Yeah.
It's like with the Amityville Horror House.
Oh, yeah.
The people that lived there after all that happened,
I'm sure.
They would have people showing up trying to take things or screaming and throwing stuff. They said that was the real Amityville Horror for them. They never experienced anything in the house. It was the people showing up and showing out that was the bother for them.
Yeah. There's a less paranormal example that comes to mind for me, but the show Breaking Bad. I don't know if you ever watched Breaking Bad.
Yeah, we loved it.
Great show. But I guess the house that was Walter White's house, I don't know if you knew this, but
Albuquerque?
It still exists. That town is a big tourist town now. But there's like a famous scene where there's a pizza on the roof. So people still throw pizzas on the roof.
Pizza on the roof, yeah.
I would appreciate that. A little pizza snack.
It's like when I lived in Oregon, I wasn't too far I was in Portland. But you could go over on the coast of Astoria where the Goonies house is at.
Yeah.
Corey Feldman.
Yes!
Corey Feldman, yes.
And they had to block off the front of the house because people would come and stand in the street and do the truffle shuffle, and yell at them and stuff. And they just got tired of, they had to gate the driveway and everything. You can take things too far, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You gotta be an adult about it.
Wherever it comes from, like, I love how you approach the missing phenomena and the missing problem and the respect that you show. Like, I think that's extremely important. And similar, like in situations like this, of course, private property do not, we don't want anyone bothering anyone on private property. I think it's more just like, it's interesting to point out the legend. And then also, I think the attitude of people, the authorities involved, like there's a way that you can also push back and say like, well, hey, we'll let you through on a tour. This is fun, but this is all nice and it's fine. But if you have an attitude that's
you can legend trip and just pass through somewhere or pass by somewhere. But once you're stepping onto private property, you've broken the law. If you're there to investigate or whatever, and you don't have permission, you should be arrested.
Yeah, for sure. I do wish places like this sometimes had more friendly communication with people who are interested, but at the same time,
some places will embrace it. Look at the Mothman. They made the town.
Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
The historic Scott County Jail. Miranda Young, bought that, turned it into a museum. They do haunted tours, things like that.
Mansfield Reformatory.
Yeah.
You can embrace it. The Flatwoods Monster, they have Flatwood Monster Days and things like that.
Yeah.
So you can fight it or you can embrace it and make a tourism thing out of it without making a mockery out of it, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny because it reminds me, we got an email from one of the largest like haunted house tour groups in the country, and they want us to do it. They own the Lizzie Borden house. I think it's the Whaley House in Gettysburg. I might be getting the name wrong.
Whaley House in San Diego.
Okay, so not that, or it is that, but then there's another one. They have like 3 properties, but we've been considering doing it because we've never done anything like that. And as much as I'm terrified of getting something attached to me,
Yeah, Lizzie Borden House, not too far from where I'm at. It's up in Fall River. It's in Massachusetts.
Now, would you stay there? The Lizzie
do you think
Borden
there's
house?
any credence to a haunting there? Because I know it's obviously like the image of that is like, oh, it must be haunted, but really,
I just don't know if I want to stay in a murder house.
I don't know. I have my doubts about the Lizzie Borden case.
Yeah.
I have a pet theory that you never hear anybody talk about. Andrew Borden had an illegitimate son.
Really?
And there's a thought that maybe he committed those murders because he knew that Lizzie and her sister were going to get all his dad's stuff, and he was upset.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you never hear that.
But I don't know. I've been there. I didn't spend the night there. I don't know that I would.
Yeah.
Just, there's an ick factor there and a creep factor.
Exactly. The energy.
It was on this couch where they found the body.
It's
Right.
like, I don't need to sleep in that. That's a weird kind of like, and some people are into that, which is fine.
You don't tempt the fate
Yeah.
and the superstitious. You don't whistle in the graveyard or
Right.
whistle after dark. That's one of the Appalachian Trail superstitions.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite.
Call stuff to you that without meaning to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can invite stuff, supernatural stuff. I believe that.
I do too. And that's one of those that's cross-cultural. That the whistling at night is such an interesting one because it's in Asia, it's in Eastern Europe, it's in North
Native
America,
American.
South America. Yeah.
Hawaiian.
Fascinating.
Also, the creepiest thing I think you can do at night in the woods, if someone doesn't know you're there, is just start whistling.
Yeah.
That's just like the creepiest.
Yeah, if you've ever been out in the woods and hear somebody whistling, what is that?
There should be no one here. There's
Yeah.
a whistler.
Well, I've seen that too. A cigarette. I was out way out in the woods one time.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Back on the other ridge, I saw the glow of a cigarette, and I'm like, there's not supposed to be anybody out here. Now, that's different than the story Halloween. I saw a cigarette going down the road.
Oh, I don't know
with
this
no
story.
light. Did I not tell that one?
No, please tell. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, I'd been to a friend's house, lived a couple miles down the road, and I was coming back from his house. I could have shortcut through the woods, but it's dark down there, and it was Halloween. So I thought I'll just take the road. It's farther. And I was coming around this curve where we did all kinds of stuff. There was a big old tree there where we used to hang stuff out of it and jump out from behind it and scare people. Halloween pranks, that's different stories. But there, about where that tree was, I saw somebody coming with a cigarette. And I thought, okay. So that road used to dead end into the river. By that point, it was the lake. A lot of times teenagers would go down there and hang out after dark and drink beer, do whatever teenagers did back then. And I thought, okay, that's somebody walking down to the lake, and I see him smoking a cigarette. Well, when it got up close to me, I could just see the cigarette, and it was still, it would puff every now and then.
What?
I could see the smoke. I could see the ember on the cigarette, but there was absolutely nothing there other than the cigarette.
Wow.
It went right by me. I watched it go by and out of sight, and I hightailed it out of there. I ran the rest of the way home. I was maybe 10, and that was either some kind of haunted cigarette or the most elaborate Halloween prank ever, because there was no place for anybody to be with a fishing light or anything. I could have seen them because there was, stuff on the other side, just this big tree, But that, true story. No idea what that was.
That's fascinating.
Now, there were people down there at that area in the lake. There were people drowned down there and stuff, so who knows?
Yeah.
Sorry, just backtracking that experience, in considering if it was a spirit and it was a poltergeist, let's say, and this was a physical, actual cigarette that maybe it had come across at someone's campsite, would have had to have lighted.
Somebody picked it up. It was...
Yeah, like, but the idea that,
Well, see, that was the thing. I could see the ember. I could see the smoke coming off the cigarette, but I don't recall. Of course, I was scared out of my wits at this time. I didn't see, like going into ghostly lungs or
that would have been
blown
incredible.
out in clouds, but it was just like occasional puff. The ember would glow, and I could see the smoke coming off the end of the cigarette, and I could smell it. I could smell the burning tobacco.
Yeah, well, you hear that a lot too, is the smell. Like, I've experienced
Right.
that before, where maybe someone had lived in a house where...
Tobacco. House I lived in Portland, Oregon, is a Victorian cottage. It was built in, I think, 1890-something. I used to smell pipe tobacco in there occasionally. Also hear what sounded like somebody dropped a handful of change, and you'd hear it go rolling across the floor.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So the smoke, that's a common thing in hauntings. What is it about smoke? Then there's coins is a big thing.
Yeah.
Coins and marbles. Like
Yeah.
these three things are definitely like major apports,
Well,
I guess.
cigarettes are probably just as addictive in the afterlife, if you think about it. I mean,
Yeah, could be.
you're so, anything you're connected to in this life, I imagine that like for a while until you find a way to move on, if you're here for a while, I'm sure you're going to be wanting to rehabituate those kinds of things.
Well, it's just another great thing to keep you sticking around here,
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
addicted to life.
And then, I guess the change in the marbles, maybe you just hear that because they're loud, heavy things that hit the floor regularly versus like if he's getting a banana, you might not hear that.
I think you might notice a banana in a strange place.
Well, you'd see it, but I mean like the sound, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, so that cigarette story, Steve, that was Halloween, you said?
Yeah. Halloween probably 73 or 74
Wow,
somewhere around.
there's that year, 73.
73, 40 in year.
That was an amazing year. There was a UFO flap that year.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
All kind of cryptids, weird stuff. 73 was a dandy. I was 10 years old that Halloween.
Oh man. Oh, that'd be a fascinating year for you.
Yeah, that year comes up all the time.
Yeah, like even just synchronistically in research, every time, like not every time, obviously, but it's so often, almost every episode, there's some account or something that happens that just correlates with 1973, almost like there was some sort of overlap at that point. Or, so, you could conjecture about it being important for some reason, but it just comes up so often. And actually right here.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. I don't know if you can see that. This is my mom's cheerleading jacket from the Newcomerstown Vikings.
She graduated in 73.
Yeah. Or I'm sorry, the Spartans. Yeah, 73.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's random, but it's a cool
Steve,
year.
let me ask you, because I have a couple more things I want to talk to you about, but I want to make sure you have how much time you have, because I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah, I'm good for now. I think Hogan
Okay.
may have fallen asleep. I heard him holler down there. You probably heard that. And I got a message. He took his first step here in the hole. So
No way!
yeah.
All right, Holden, that is awesome.
Cheers to Holden. That's incredible.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he and Nicole
That's great.
are listening in downstairs, but
Aw.
she messaged me and said he just took a step. Said it was a tiny one, but first step.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We're honored.
I feel bad we took it from you. You missed it
Yeah,
because you were
there'll be
here with
more to
us.
come.
Okay.
Many more steps.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Step into the hole.
Boy, Dad.
That's right.
Boy, that's great.
Speaking of the stepping of youth, I'm going to try to tie this in here.
So smoothly.
We were talking about Halloween night.
Nice
Halloween
segue
night.
there. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very smooth.
We were talking about Halloween night, and we have these anthologies on the show. You might be aware of, but like it happened on Halloween, so that's a great one for that. And I actually had an idea before you came on the show of covering some stories that because they kept relating to anthologies we do, and one anthology we do is called Varsity Booze. And I know you went to an elementary school that had some haunting aspects to it. And I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about Fairview.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole chapter in my book about that. I made a video about it in my haunted school. It was Fairview Elementary in Knox County, West Knox County. It had been there. I think it was built as part of the WPA, I think. Built in the 30s, I want to say. It might have been built in the 20s. I don't remember. But my mom went there as a child. My brother went there. And then I went there from the 1st through the 7th grade. It was a 1 through 8 originally, but then they opened a middle school up the road in Carnes. And that summer they did away with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They had to go to a different school and hated it. But it was very active there. There was always stuff going on. There was you had to go downstairs to the music library room, later a library. And there were these doors, like half doors halfway up the wall. And people would look in there and swear they saw kids crawling around in there.
Oh, creepy.
A kid named Robbie fell out there backwards. He claimed there was something in there that pushed him out. And there was stuff there that would happen all the time. But the really interesting experience I had after I was out of there, when I don't know if I was in 8th grade that time or maybe even in high school. It was still a school at that time, but just preschool, I think, through 5th grade at that point. And a childhood friend and I walked over there. We'd go over and play on the playground and stuff sometimes. Well, we decided we wanted to go and see if we could get into the school and wander around after dark.
Oh, yeah.
And we got there. Now, this, don't do this. This was trespassing because it was still property of the Knox County school system at the time. Sure enough, the doors were all locked, but we found a window that was open. So He climbed in. I boosted him in. He went around, opened the door. It had those doors that even if they're locked from the outside, you could push on the inside and they would open up. And he let me in, and we were just in there marveling, like, because, we'd spent years there. Me 7 years, him 6 years. And just thinking, wow, this is, so-and-so's classroom. And I remember when this happened here, that happened here. We even ventured into the girls' room, I just remember being amazed at those coin-operated boxes on the wall. Now, he had older sisters, so he knew all about that kind of thing. But we went down. You had to go down some stairs it was a combination lunchroom, gymnasium, auditorium with a stage and stuff down there. So we went into there. We're looking around in there. Well, there were these windows up high that had like chain link type stuff over them to keep balls from going through them, because we played kickball and tag and dodgeball in there. So the moon was shining in. We could see the place was lit up. We're standing there just like looking around. And all of a sudden we hear what sounds like unmistakable sound of high heels on that gym floor. Click, 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 click. And it's getting closer. And we can't see anything. The moon's shining in, it's right in there. And it's within probably a few yards of us. And our paralysis broke. We ran out of there, ran right out the front door. We didn't care who saw us at that point. Went across the road, down in a little field there by the lower ball field, and laid in the weeds and watched. Didn't see any lights, didn't see anything come on. But that was one of the stories there, that there was a teacher, depending on who you talk to, that had either died at the school, died in a traffic wreck on the way home from school, or died at home and just decided to come back there. But it was the sound of high heel shoes in an otherwise deserted school late at night. No explanation. And like I said, that was one of the rumors, the urban legends of the school, was that there was a teacher that haunted there. There was the bell that they rang between classes. Sometimes it would just ring by itself. The principal carried the only key in a little watch pocket on his vest, and the key was locked in the lockbox up high where kids couldn't get to it, so you couldn't pull the chain and ring the bell. But sometimes that bell, bing, and teachers would open their doors and look out, because it was different than a fire drill or different than the change classes bell. Sometimes it would just go off.
Wow.
A lot of strange legends about that school. After it ceased becoming a school, it's now a Fairview Technology Center. You can look it up online.
Oh.
It's like a think tank or something.
Huh.
Interesting.
Where they study the spirits of the dead.
Yeah, and I've wondered that. They used to do a lot of scientific research and stuff there. Now it's, like I said, an incubator for small business stuff. But I wonder if they've ever had any experiences.
Yeah. What is it called? You said
Fairview Technology Center, and it should say Knox County or Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, cool. It'd be cool to follow up with them. Just to ask if anyone's experienced anything.
Parts of it look pretty much like it did when I went to school there.
Huh.
We live across the street, actually. We've lived all around the country, California, Texas, but we're back in our hometown, and across the street from us is our, I think, very haunted elementary school. It was built in,
1881,
and I'll send you a picture of it. We'll have it on the screen for viewers.
How could it not be haunted?
When we were going there, it was on its way out. I think we were one of the last classes.
Clinton Elementary.
Yeah, Clinton Elementary. It was one of the last classes to be there before they kind of shut it down. And since it's been shut down, there have been small businesses coming in, and no one stays for more than like a year. And there was one guy who he tried to run some sort of like secondhand store out of the back of this old building. And it was funny to drive by the building, because he would, there it is, Steve, on the screen.
Yeah.
Now it's covered in ivy.
Yeah. It just looks haunted.
Even now looks way creepier.
Beautiful architecture. But you would drive by at night after this guy bought it, and you would see one light on in the very front room, because, that's where he put his where he was sleeping, because the place was just so eerie. There's weird stuff going on there when we were going to school there. But I love what you wrote, Steve. I'm going to read this if you don't mind. It's an introduction to the story, because I love how you put this. again, we'll have this book linked, but I love how your kind of pet theory here. You wrote, a haunted school, it's not as unusual as it sounds. I
There it is.
suspect it's no different than, say, a haunted hospital, other than the fact that fewer people have passed away at a school. Maybe a haunted shopping mall would be a better comparison. Why would anyone want to haunt a school, you ask? Well, schools such as Columbine have a history of terrible tragedy, so that would kind of be a given. My own pet theory, and that's all it is, a theory, is that many people look back on their lives and realize, sadly in most cases, that their school days were the happiest of all. If you could come back as a ghost, wouldn't you be drawn to a place you loved and enjoyed? Conversely, maybe you were bullied and tormented in school and chose to come back and take vengeance in the place where you were the most miserable. Either way, haunted schools do exist. And then you go on to recount your experience. But I just
that
like
sounds
that.
good, even if I did write it. Huh?
That's a great opening for Varsity Booze, Chris. We should use that on our first
Yeah.
Varsity Booze episode.
You're more than welcome.
No, that's true, though. I mean, I feel like I think actually in school, synchronistically, but not really. We had an English teacher, and she said that most authors, like novels and such, most of the point of writing is about the loss of innocence and the search for that innocence, getting it back.
Stand by Me, Stephen King.
Stand by
yeah,
Me.
man,
What a
so
great,
good.
yeah, great.
What's that
book,
great last
film.
line?
I don't think I've ever had.
Friends like I did when I was 13.
Yeah,
God, does anyone?
Yeah,
Or something like
Jesus,
that?
Jesus,
Oh,
does
yeah.
anybody?
and that's true.
Yeah. So we're looking for, but that makes sense why you'd have that kind of energy that is retained
Yeah.
in those
I mean,
spaces.
that's why I still dream about school days, you know?
I do.
Oh yeah.
I have that dream where you're back in school
Oh, yeah.
at this age,
Yes.
and nobody's thought, why is there a 61-year-old man
Yes.
in here?
And you're not
It's
sure
just
either.
Business as usual.
Yeah.
It's not any of the schools that I ever went to, but I know where everything is. This is the geography department. That's the English wing over there. And I'm just in here. If anybody asks, I'm going to tell them, oh, I found out my diploma wasn't any good because I failed a class, so I'm here
Exactly.
to taking the classes over, you know,
Yeah.
some 40, 50 years after the
That's
fact.
my exact like recurring dream is I'm there and I'm the age I am now, 40 years old. And
And it's always like golden hour for me.
and there was one test I forgot to take or something that I had failed that I need to go back just for one more. And then of course I have to take it again. And I was not there the whole semester. I don't know what that's going to be on the test. I'm going to fail again. That's just this recurring,
It's trauma.
it's trauma. School is trauma, but also fun.
Yes. Oh, Steve, I wanted to bring this up to you. Get your take. Okay, actually, let me ask you to recount one more tale, if you would. This one, because it relates to a listener submission. I happened to read them both in the same evening, and I was like, okay, I got to ask Steve about this. So, if you recall it, would you give us kind of a breakdown of the encounter you had with a mirror in 1972 or 3?
Yeah, that was, I still puzzle over that one. I was at, is that auction house, antique shop or something? My parents were antique dealers, sort of as a hobby. And they had booths in different antique malls. And then they, did things like that, go to flea markets, estate sales. That's what we were doing passing through Ohio when I was a kid. But this one shop that we went to, they knew the people that owned it. I think they had a booth there. And this one area was stuff that they had set aside for the next upcoming auction. I was wandering around back there drinking a bottle of Pepsi or something, if I recall correctly. And there was this big, ornate floor-length mirror. And it was carved, it was dark wood, had kind of weird symbols or something on it. And the mirroring was kind of coming off of it and stuff. But I noticed when I saw my reflection that it wasn't backwards. Like if I raised my right hand, I wouldn't see a reflection of me raising the other hand. I was actually seeing like I was, say, on a camera or something. And when I held up the bottle of Pepsi and took a drink, I could still read the Pepsi logo. It wasn't backwards or anything. And I thought, what? And I stood there and marveled, made faces and thought, this is how other people see me. Because that's the only time really, other than a picture or something, you don't know what you look like to other people.
Yeah.
It's usually inverted.
Yeah, because, like I said, instead of seeing a reflection of this, it was the same. And I'm like, okay. And then sooner or later, it was time to go. And I puzzled over that for a long time. And then much later in life, I was thinking about that. They have that now, but it has cameras, little cameras in the sides of the mirror. And that's the only way you can see it without it being a reflection. And I still, to this day, it was Bewitched Mirror. I made a video about it on 13 Past Midnight, and that's what I called it. That's the only explanation I have. And I'm assuming that it was sold in the next auction and somewhere sitting in a house or in a garage or who knows where. There's a bewitched mirror that shows you stuff that's not a reflection. And then I thought about that. I kind of went to the nth degree with that. What if that's not a reflection? That's inside the mirror? That's the me that's in there. And, you could make a whole Twilight Zone night gallery type episode about that.
Yeah.
That's something else I've started doing on Tales Untold. I've got a thing called the Night Cafe, fictional stuff, but
cool.
based
Yeah.
in possible paranormal activity. But I'm having a lot of fun with that, and I may do that one for that. But mirrors, I mean, they have a long history of weird stuff. You in Appalachia, you cover the mirror when somebody dies.
Right.
According to my granny, that's so the spirit doesn't see itself and get confused and stick around. I mean, you may have loved Uncle Ed, but you don't want him to hang around as a ghost.
Yeah. In your mirror, poor Uncle Ed stuck in a mirror.
He wants to go on, move on,
Right.
And then I've heard other reasons for that you cover the mirror so people think about the deceased and not stand and preen themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole thing down south. And I've heard that there are certain mirrors, that have portals that's the way you can test the mirrors, to put your finger against it. And if you can see a gap in there, then it's more than just a mirror. But there's a whole litany of supernatural things and strange paranormal things concerning mirrors. I knew a lady in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that she had a friend that she claimed went through the mirror, like Alice through the looking glass. She claimed that she knew somebody, however, by whatever means, went into the mirror and never came back.
Oh, that is terrifying.
So, what would it be on the other side? Would it be like Superman, the bizarro world where everything's turned around? Or would it be like me and my reflection that I was watching do everything?
Yeah.
Is it just the mirror me over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mirror.
Somebody had a song back in the day, The Mirror Man or whatever. That
sounds familiar.
Man.
Human League, I think. And Michael Jackson.
That's the Michael Jackson
Man.
Man in the mirror. Yeah, I remember that.
Different song.
Yeah, but it's so I happened to read that story in the same night we got a listener submission who wants to be kept anonymous, but I wanted to read it because it's short, but it kind of reminds me of yours, and it also reminds me of we've had other accounts. There were one pretty terrifying one in particular. I forget what I titled it. Something like the mirror ghost in the pole in the pigtails or something, because it came out and grabbed this girl by the.
People see things in the mirror. I've seen pictures of demonic faces. Mirrors and things. So there is something to some of all that. Not every mirror, but there are bewitched mirrors out there.
There is a ancient Chinese belief, I guess, that involves the concept that our reflections are, or some of them are imposter demonic entities that are biding their time until they murder us and take our places. So kind of related to the one girl's tale with the pigtail that we did on our show. But this is from Anonymous. She wants to be kept anonymous. And this happened in Oyster Creek, Texas. And there's a tie-in at the end of this to some, what you, I guess, might call folklore witchcraft, which might be an interesting talking point. But I'll read this quick. This is called Mirrors and Nails. And this happened July 2018 around 10 p.m.
I'm on a tablet right now, so this isn't going to be as well written as it could have been. But I've been trying to send this in for a while, but I keep getting a sort of mental block whenever I think of telling anyone about this. I was at my house with a friend just hanging out when I walked past a mirror hanging next to my bed and happened to glance up at it. Just in time to see my reflection turn to face me. While I stayed sideways to it, watching in my peripheral. It started to kind of lift its hand, when suddenly the air felt like it had been suddenly sucked out of the room. I've had way too many paranormal experiences over my life to get too freaked out by them anymore, but this sense of pure impending doom hit so hard. I immediately grabbed my phone, told my friend to come on, and then took off on foot. Thankfully, she followed, with questions, but she followed. I kept us walking for probably half a mile before I felt safe enough to stop and tell her what had happened. Ever since that night, anytime I try to talk about it, that same feeling of doom comes back. I'm not sure if this is related, but at that same house, while digging my garden, I found a buried, upside-down, broken plate over a bed of bent, rusted nails.
So I looked this up, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, Steve, but bent rusted nails and pins was a common spirit trap for witches in witch bottles.
Huh.
So I just thought that was an interesting connection.
Witch bottle. I was just going to say, yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frightening to think
Which
about.
I know is like started as a European thing, but yeah, it's all over Appalachia. I know there's witch bottles in Appalachia, apparently in Texas.
I was watching a video, a guy with a metal detector, and he dug one up.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what is this? It was a jar, and it had nails and hair and some kind of unidentified liquid in there. And people in the comments are like, no, put it back, put it back, put it back. And he opened it up later, and then people had messaged him and told him what it was. But that's I wouldn't mess with it.
Yeah, generally they're supposed to be for protecting against witches. They're interesting. One thing I read about, a lot of them in Europe are found, especially Germany, are found. They're either like underneath the hearth in the chimney because they believe that witches would come through the chimney. And the idea behind the bent pins and stuff is that so when you bend a pin or a needle or a nail, you're killing it. And you're creating a spirit of that nail. So then the witch gets trapped in the bottle. It gets curious, and you'll maybe urinate in it, and it'll think it's your smell, so it'll go after you, and it gets stuck in the bottle, and then is haunted by the nails of you get stuck on that.
And then that thing, remember in school, somebody would say something to you, you'd say in and around and right back at you. That's I think that's probably the origin of that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Fascinating. But again, it goes back to that spiritual architecture stuff that I find so interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you to Anonymous who submitted that.
Good story.
Yeah, I want to share it just because it reminded me of your little account and makes me wonder about mirrors and the true nature of sometimes the reflections that we see in them. But yeah.
Yeah. Mirrors are creepy, man.
Yeah.
Although it's also creepy to be in a place where mirrors do not exist because it makes you wonder. Chris and I
why aren't there? Yeah. Oh, that's right. The hotel we went to and all the mirrors were removed.
Yeah. There were no mirrors in the bathroom or the room. And it just felt like, is there a reason why?
I think it was under construction.
But that's probably.
We did have weird things happen in that hotel. I think we told that on the show, but did have strange dreams. Was it all a mental thing, or was there a reason behind it? I don't know. But hotels, that's a whole other topic. Those liminal places.
Yeah. Something about the liminal.
Well, want to get into other regions. So speaking of in Las Vegas, when you worked as a photographer, that story of the sort of spiritual attack that happened. I don't know if you can recall that.
Oh gosh. That's a pretty,
it's a pretty involved one. So I might break that down in the expansion, but it's a really fascinating account.
Yeah, that house was on the outskirts of Vegas when it was built. It was built in the 30s, and by the time the town had grown up around it. But that was when there was no strip or anything in Vegas. Everything was down on Fremont Street, and it was a couple of miles from there. So it was literally out in the middle of nowhere. And a very, very, very active house. And some of my models that I had there in my studio, they would hear things whispering in their ear and stuff. My roommate's dog, something would pin him down in the hallway to where he couldn't move. I felt cold spots in there. There was a secret room at the bottom of the stairs behind a bookcase. Just a bare concrete room with a drain in the middle.
Oh, no. Doesn't bode well.
And I was outside getting the mail one time, and I felt somebody staring at me, and there was an old gentleman there behind me. And I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "No." He said, "I just wonder what kind of person could live in a house like that." And I'm like, "Tell me more." And he had lived there since the 50s. But apparently it had been a mob safe house at one time. He said there were people that went in that didn't come out the same way they went in. And then in the 70s, there was some kind of religious order cult that occupied the house. It was a big showplace of a house. And downstairs there was like a window that just opened into another room. And then inside there was like alcoves in the walls. And I saw that as probably a place where they had service, and that was like a little window like some churches have, where people could sit over there and watch what was going on. I don't know. But the whole place, weird vibe, weird things happened there. My clothing would get thrown off into the floor. The rail and all came off one night, and I screwed the rail into the closet. This is like a building wall unit. And I thought, there, now knock it off. Laid back down, I hear this big noise. I turned the light on. Every single bit of clothing I had, which was like dress shirts and jackets and stuff, had been picked up, thrown on the floor in a straight line. So it was, I mean, I go into it in a lot more detail in there, but I had a seance in there. There was stuff in there.
It was such an eclectic kind of sinister history. Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of just lingering energy.
And you never know. There's places, I mean, you can move into a brand new house, but as Stephen King writes, the ground has soured. You don't know what's going on there. Run into that here in New England. There's places where blood is spilled here. Civil War, Revolutionary War, the on back with the warring tribes, indigenous people and stuff. You don't know what is here before you, maybe centuries before.
Yeah, plenty to explore there. And you're going to be doing a series, aren't you, on New England?
Oh yeah, the 6-book series.
Yeah, I'm doing a book series, Strange New England. Doing one book for each state.
That's awesome. Well, I look forward to having you back on for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. Well, come up and visit sometime. I've never
absolutely
been to the Northeast.
Come up to go to Old Sturbridge Village. It's a working 1800s village. They do like a Legend of Sleepy Hollow type thing there.
Cool.
During October, I may volunteer to tell stories there. So
that's
definitely.
Awesome. Let's come for that.
Costume and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be so great
to do some filming.
Yeah, that's Northeast is like New England area is one place. I think the first I've been up is, my geography is really bad, but I mean, I've been to Maryland, DC. I mean, anything up much further north than that. I've been to New York. I'm not sure where all those fall next to each other. That's a lot of that area, but I haven't been up. I haven't been up to Maine or.
You haven't been to New England, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Those are the 6.
Yeah,
we've been everywhere else.
And I'm really close to the Connecticut line here, but it's beautiful up here, especially in the fall.
Oh yeah.
Well, we'll have a friend when we go. A friend in New England. That'll be nice.
There you go.
Yeah, that'll be great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Steve. This has been just a great time.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's been too long. Maybe next time you'll have me back sooner.
Absolutely.
I used to jokingly say that if we'd been the same age, I would have been that guy that came home from school with you. And then the next day you'd say, our mom says you can't come over anymore. So.
I'm sure I would have loved you.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Actually, they're looking forward to watching this. They loved your last interview, so they're really pumped.
Hello.
Yes. But it'll definitely be great to have you back on. And thank you for coming. And anybody out there who's listening who hasn't picked up a copy of one of Steve's books, I mean, he's got a great range of books to pick through.
I just have this one handy, but I've got A Serious World. I've got National Park Mysteries and Disappearances.
I have that one too,
3 volumes of that. I'm working on more of those.
Those are great.
I was going to do a New England version, but there's only one national park in New England. Can you believe that? Acadia in Maine.
Yeah, I just saw you just dropped an episode on that, didn't you, recently?
Yeah.
It kind of boggled my mind. I didn't realize.
There's a lot of state parks and things up here, but that's the only national park in New England is Acadia.
Yeah.
In Maine. It's got a lot of missing people.
This is kind of an ignorant comment, but I did not know how many national parks there were. We got a deck of playing cards with all the national parks, or 52 at least on them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never heard of this. And I just, you hear, of course, you hear about Yellowstone and Yosemite and, the Grand Tetons and all these like kind of classic arches. But I was going through, I've never heard of so many of these. And then I saw Acadia and I was like, I just saw Steve drop an episode on this. So we'll have to check that out. But so many mysteries, so many parks.
Yes.
Not enough time.
Well, guys, it's always a pleasure. And thank you for having me back. And I look forward to the next time. I hope this episode does as well as the last one. Anybody that's never seen me before, come and subscribe to my channels. Missing Persons Mysteries with Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, which is, I have a big time over there. And then 13 Past Midnight, which is more seasonal now. But I'm doing the night gallery type stuff on Tales Untold. And I've been doing a lot of Appalachian stuff over there too.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll have links. You guys, again, if you're watching on YouTube, check the video description. If you're listening on audio, check the show notes or whatever podcast player you're listening on. We'll have all links direct there so you can click and go and get access to all Steve's good stuff. Don't miss it.
Yes. And congratulations to Holden in his beginning of his journey, his beginning of his going down his own trail.
I've got a picture of him there if you want to show it.
Oh, yeah.
He just turned 10 months old on the 5th of July.
That's great.
And while we were recording this, he took his first step downstairs in his play yard. So
the whole is honored.
He's
Holden Chandler.
Hey, as we leave here, Steve, would you mind doing your sign-off salutation that I've heard you do so many times?
Well, I'm Steve Stockton. It's been a pleasure. Be good to yourselves and each other. As for me, I'll see you next time. See you a little. I'm not messing up there. I'll see you a little further on down the trail. Tell your animals. Steve says hi. Good night, everybody.
Perfect.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Well, we hope you dug that interview and had as much fun as we did with Steve.
I had a blast. Steve is the best.
And again, John says hello. He misses you all, and he is in the expansion, so head on over there if you want to hear him. And we didn't get to thank yous this week, as you'll see, but we will be doing it next week.
Absolutely. And if this is your first time hearing Steve and you want to get a little more taste of the Stockton, click the link in the show notes or the little QR code that is somewhere floating under my finger on the video. Snap a picture and you'll be taken directly to all his links. There'll also be links in the show notes to become a member and get bonus episodes, double the episodes actually. So check it out. And don't forget to maybe like this video if you had a good time today.
Yeah.
Because it really does help us. We always forget to ask.
That would make you a pretty awesome person.
It's make you probably the coolest person in the world.
All right, guys, we'll catch you next time
On
on Believeful.
Get it?